Dumelang Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Kekwas Vanawe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the African continent and beyond. As usual, you're joined by Ashwin Berry and Aina Raiza Kweyo.
Happy Monday, everyone. We are so excited to be back again on your screen. We are also excited because today it's Kids Inventors Day. Now, this day was created several years ago by people who wanted to celebrate the achievement of the youngest inventors, as well as encourage more children to be creative. How lovely is that?
That's fantastic. In fact, I remember those kids. All those kids skipped high school because they got successful early.
Yes,
so, yeah.
And here is more on Kids Inventors Day.
Closer than a secret. Couldn't walk away if I wanted to. I got something left to say. My fire for you won't fade away. Got nothing left to prove.
Welcome back. In your top stories this morning, Ethiopia at crossroad as drone attacks worsen Tigray crisis. Pressure from the international community to resolve Ethiopia's Tigray conflict has been higher. The Norwegian Nobel Committee, which bestows the Nobel Peace Prize on Thursday, called on Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, a recipient of the award in 2019, to end the bloodshed in Tigray. The region has been ravaged by war that broke out between Tigrayan forces and the federal troops on 14 months ago. Fighting has caused a humanitarian crisis in Tigray, with allegations of atrocity leveled against all parties in the conflict. More than 2 million people have been displaced and hundreds of thousands are living in famine-like conditions with no aid to the region blocked. As Prime Minister and Peace Prize winner, Abiy Ahmed has a special responsibility to end the conflict and contribute to peace in the region where hostilities have killed thousands, the prize committee said in a statement to a news agency, AFP.
In our second story, Malians rally in support of ruling junta and protest ECOWAS sanctions. Malians took to the street en masse on Friday after the military junta called for protests against stringent sanctions imposed by the West Africa bloc ECOWAS over delayed elections. In the capital, Bamako, thousands of people wearing the national colors of red, yellow and green gathered in a central square for a rally staged by the military government. A large crowd also gathered in the northern city of Timbuktu, AFP correspondents reported. Social media also showed mass demonstrations in the towns of Kadiolo and Bogoni in the south. Leaders from the Economic Community of West African States agreed to sanction Mali last week, imposing a trade embargo and shutting borders in a decision later backed by France, the United States and the European Union. Now, the EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said on Thursday that Brussels will follow ECOWAS in taking action against Mali over delayed elections. The same day, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it is absolutely essential that the government of Mali present an acceptable election timetable. Despite the pressure, many in Mali have rallied behind the military junta, with nationalist messages flooding social media.
In our next story, Ethiopia wants WHO chief Tedros probed for misconduct. The Ethiopian Ethiopian government has accused the World Health Organization director of misconduct after criticized conditions in the Tigray region. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus was nominated by the Ethiopian government to be the head of the UN Health Agency 4 years ago, but claims he has not lived up to the integrity and professional expectations. He has been accused of interfering in Ethiopia's internal affairs, according to a press release issued on Thursday by the Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Through his ex, Tedros spread harmful misinformation and compromised WHO's reputation, independence, and credibility, the statement read. Tedros has on many occasions criticized the situation in his home country and called for humanitarian access to the conflict-ridden region of Ethiopia. Tedros accused Ethiopia of blocking international access to Tigray, saying that WHO had not been allowed to send any supplies to the region since July.
In our next story, Tunisians defy ban on social gatherings. Tunisian police used tear gas and water cannons on Friday against hundreds of demonstrators who defied a ban on gatherings to protest against President Kais Saied's July power grab. As the country marks 11 years since the fall of late dictator Ben Ali, hundreds of Saied's opponents staged rallies against his July 2021 move. They had gathered despite restrictions imposed on Thursday, ostensibly to prevent the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Around 300 protesters gathered on Mohammed V Avenue, where some broke through a police cordon before being forced back by police with batons. Security forces had deployed heavily to block them from reaching the central Habib Bourguiba Avenue and the Interior Ministry headquarters, where vast protests in early 2011 had forced Ben Ali to flee to Saudi Arabia. The protest took place despite a string of measures, including a nighttime curfew and a ban on public gatherings brought in on Thursday evening, purportedly to tackle a steep rise in coronavirus infections.
WHO adds new drug to COVID-19 treatment amid Omicron surge. The WHO organization has added 2 more drugs to its guidelines for recommended treatments for COVID-19 as the more infectious Omicron variant of the coronavirus triggers an unexpected surge in cases around the world. The drug barituximab, which is also used to treat rheumatoid arthritis, is strongly recommended for patients with severe or critical COVID-19 in combination with corticosteroids, the UN Agency Panel on International Experts said in the guidelines, which were published by the British Medical Journal on Friday. The drug reduces the need for ventilation and had been found to improve patients' chances of survival with no signs of an increase in adverse reaction, the panel said. The panel also gave a conditional recommendation for sotrovimab, an experimental monoclonal antibody treatment for those with non-severe COVID-19 but at a very high risk of hospital admission. Monoclonal antibodies are lab-created compounds that mimic the body's natural defense mechanism.
Now in North Kivu, 22 Congolese fishermen arrested by the Ugandan Navy. According to an official, Congolese fishermen crossed the liquid border between the DRC and Uganda without knowing it, given that the common border between the two countries is not marked. 22 Congolese fishermen from the coastal locality of Kiavinyonge in the territory of Beni were arrested by Ugandan naval forces on Lake Edward. Members of the Fishermen's Association of this area called on the Congolese authorities to investigate this issue so that a lasting solution is found.
Malawi court dismisses challenges against mandatory COVID vaccination. A high court in Malawi's capital Lilongwe, has dismissed an application by civil society group aimed at stopping the government from implementing mandatory COVID-19 vaccines. Attorney General Thabo Nyireda said the case was thrown out because Health Minister Kabize Kadodo Chiponda's announcement was an intention, not a requirement. Accumulating data is continuing to indicate that the majority of those being admitted to our emergency treatment unit or losing their lives to COVID-19 have not been vaccinated, said Chiponda, justifying the decision. Human rights group, media organization and legal experts question the legality of the decision, calling for the government to convince people rather than coerce people into getting the vaccine. On Thursday afternoon, dozens of opponents of the compulsory vaccination stood outside court while the judgment was read.
In our next story, Niger police seize cocaine from mayor's car. A local mayor and his driver have been arrested in a desert in northern Niger with more than 200 kilograms of cocaine in their vehicle, police say. The two suspects, who have not been named, were allegedly transporting the drug to Libya after it had been smuggled into the country from Mali. Niger's drug policing agency said it was the largest quantity of cocaine seized in the West African country. The mayor and his driver were taken to Niger's capital Niamey for questioning. Fachi is an oasis in the Tenere Desert, about 400 kilometers north of the town of Agadez. It is known as a trading center for salt and dates. The region is used as a route for multiple types of trafficking, such as moving drugs between South America and Europe, as well as migrant smuggling.
In our next story, Australia's hottest day in 60 years triggers a gas plant outage. Australia met the country's highest temperature on record, triggering a bushfire warning and temporarily shutting a natural gas export plant. A production train at the Woodside Petroleum Ltd's Northwest Shell liquefied natural gas export plant in Western Australia suffered a brief outage this week due to the spike in temperature. Several bushfire alerts are in effect in Western Australia, according to the state government website.
All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories. After the break, we'll be talking about Namibia's much-praised community-based natural resource management. So stick around. We'll see you soon. Now, Namibia's much-praised community-based natural resource management came under fire late last year, following the publication of an international report that claimed all was not well with the program. In response, dozens of Namibian conservation programs fired back, saying the report was done in bad faith, disputing its findings. Maxi Lewis, the director of the Namibian Association of CBNRM support organizations, delves more into why many said the report should not be taken seriously. She was speaking to our colleague Yana Marie Smith. Have a look.
I'm really fortunate because I started very much as a young person participating in this program, and I was in my late 20s. And I remember in the northwest of the country, there was very few wildlife at the time when we started this program, and our communities were very much anti-wildlife because of the human-wildlife conflict issues, but also because of the poaching issues that were happening in the region, and the families sometimes being, felt that government was very unfair with them in terms of some of the, wildlife challenges and so forth. And then I saw a progression from communities voluntarily accepting living with wildlife outside parks. I saw wildlife increasing. I saw people people getting benefits from wildlife, and especially from sustainable use. That was a big thing. People getting meat, people getting money. And so for me, those are things that I've seen with my own eyes, that I experienced myself, and that has changed a lot of the landscapes. And because I work over 20 years in the Kunene area, I saw a landscape starting from very few animals into a landscape where we are now, actually having so much animals that it caused a lot of conflicts. These communities are voluntarily looking after species that are very important for the world. They look, I mean, the rhinos are important. They are nearly extinct. Where is the majority of those rhinos living? In the Northwest, where people are looking after them. So I think we should be very appreciative of what they are doing, because they are looking after certain things that they should have been extinct by now. Because living with wildlife, for these communities, there's a price to pay. What is these prices? Our kids cannot go to school because there could be an elephant waiting from them at the gate when they go to school. There have been people killed there. They destroy people's livelihood. So we have all these challenges that are around. Yes.
Last year, November, a report was released. Could you talk a little bit about this report and what your concerns were?
When I look at this, at what happened in terms of this report, was that first of all, the processes that were followed in terms of getting here and contacting us that are also working within this sector, that was not done. I was very, very surprised to hear from a colleague of mine. There were people in the field, they didn't have any research permit, they didn't talk to us. You need to balance. It should be a balanced report. So you talk to those ones that implement, and you also talk to those ones that are not involved, so that you have a broader spectrum. So because of that, I think from my point of view, it was done very much in bad faith. And we heard stories afterwards from the communities that they interviewed that this was not done in a very good manner. They thought they were just having a conversation. And remember, at the time when they did, when they were in the field, is the time that we were going through a lot of what we are going through now, is the drought. And I'm talking here about the landscape in the Northwest, because when you read in their report, they are referring to the whole CBNRM and the whole country. The only area where there is a decline in terms of wildlife is the Northwest, and we don't dispute that. Secondly, we do produce a report called the State of Conservancy report. This is information that we gather from the ground, from our communities, the systems that we have set up over years. They are not perfect, but at least they gave us an opportunity to understand what is the trends, what is happening in the area. And so the one thing that I felt was very done very badly by such a high level of researchers is taking a report, reading this report, and just taking what we ourselves termed as challenges in our report and try just to cherry pick on those issues and make sure that those issues are being heard over. So it does not even come from them, it comes from us, and then they just tweak it to actually fit their agenda. But that does not mean that this is a program that is perfect. We never said that. Even when you read our reports, we never said it's a perfect program. So I think what people also need to understand is that this program actually started merely as a wildlife program. And for the first maybe 10 years, we implemented it as a purely wildlife program. So we did not really envisage issues around governance. So we struggled with those issues in terms of governance, and that is a bigger one. Secondly, and we started addressing that. So if all of the challenges we start addressing, they are not perfect, we are trying to implement them as we go. So for me, governance is a big one, and we still need to work on that one, and we continue to work on that one. So the other one is just that it's not a program that was set up to address all the rural problems that we are facing in Namibia. This is a program that is a voluntary program, and people participate voluntarily. And so the benefits that goes to the communities is also for a group of people within that community that have signed up to a membership to become a conservancy. So to come in and expect that this project will address all the problems in communal areas, and I think this is where there is a narrow understanding from the researchers that this program is not a program that is addressing all the challenges of the country when it comes to communal land. One of the biggest challenges is benefits. Even within the program, we are not able to make sure that we accrue all the benefits in the whole of the rural area. Yes, we should do better in trying to make sure that those benefits really accrue to the people on the ground, because that also has been our own criticism. It's a weakness that we need to work on, that we need to strengthen our governance systems to make sure that at least we make sure that most of the benefits actually accrue to those ones that are impacted, especially by human-wildlife conflict, or impacted by drought, or impacted. That is something that I think as a program we continue to address. I think as Namibians, and I always try to encourage Namibians, that we have done a superb job. And I think we should applaud ourselves in terms of that we have kept wildlife on our lands. And it doesn't matter whether you live in communal land. It doesn't matter whether you live on a farm. I'm so proud as a Namibian that we have this wildlife and resources on our land, and we are keeping it for ourselves, and we are managing it in a sustainable way. And I think sometimes we don't think about it, because, and I can understand, we are going through COVID, it's difficult, but we have done well.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Now, Zambia's sixth national census will be undertaken this year, 2 years after the initial plan. Now, Master Mike Sichula, all the way in Zambia, has this story and more. Good morning, Master Sichula. Please take this story as briefly as you can, please.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning once again. Indeed, Zambia will be undertaking its sixth national census of population and housing. The census was initially supposed to be undertaken in 2020, but due to financial challenges, it was pushed to 2021. And again, last year it failed due to financial challenges, among other things. But finally, the new administration has signed a statutory instrument stating that the census will be held from the 18th of August to 14th September 2022. Zambia has previously conducted censuses since independence. The last census was held in October 2010. It was the 5th. Then previous censuses were conducted in 1969, 1980, 1990, and in the year 2000. Zambia's population is currently estimated to be over 18 million people. And the new census that is going to be undertaken from the 18th August to 14th September will be an electronic kind of a census where there will be no paperwork. Everything, the questionnaire is actually on the database, because the government has procured those machinery, and people have already been trained to conduct the census.
All right. Now in Tanzania, I know it's called ugali. In Namibia, it's pap. In Zimbabwe, it's sadza. And I believe in Zambia, it's inshima, which is the staple food, mealies. And I believe that the price has gone up. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, the price of mealie meal, which is our staple food, and shima, has gone up between $2 to $4, depending on the location where you're buying this mealie meal, and also depending on the supplier. This has come at a time when a number of Zambians are asking the government to stop the export of the export of maize to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a very big market for such products. But the government has said people should not worry, and because there's over 2 million metric tons of maize in reserves, and an association that backs millers has said that they have enough in stock, and the price adjustments is due to external factors such as the hike in fuel, among other issues.
All right.
All right, Master Sichula, we understand that timber exports permits have been suspended. Please tell us why.
Yes, the government of Zambia, the new administration has put a halt to the issuance of timber export licenses because there have been complaints previously from traditional leaders and as well as environmental campaigners who've been saying there's been an indiscriminate cutting of timber, which is actually leading to deforestation and leading also to effects of climate change. So the government, trying to counter, has actually decided to say, okay, let's put a halt to the export of timber to ensure that there's accountability in how timber is exported, and also ensure that revenue collection from timber exports is managed properly for the benefit of communities where this timber is coming from.
Absolutely, it is important to preserve those natural resources. Thank you, Mike, for bringing us the news from Zambia.
Thank you very much, Africa. Good morning.
All right, so that was the news stories coming from Zambia. Just now we'll swing over to Botswana, but prior to that, your weather.
Join the club, the Infinity Club with Paratus, and jump into a world of limitless connectivity. For only $599 per month excluding VAT, the new LTE Infinity Lite package that includes a wingle will overcome all limitations. Visit paratus.africa/NA for more information.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Now, Africa Good Morning prides itself on being your reliable source for decentralized African news. Keeping that in mind, we're going to cross over to Botswana, where unfortunately there has been a flood, but these victims are not alone, as the Red Cross has offered support. Maseko, could you please get into this and more of your stories?
Good morning, Africa, and good morning to you, Ashwin and Aina in studio. So several Botswana have been left in need aid as the Okavango River floods in the north of Botswana. The Red Cross has since supplied residents in the area with basic provisions for the moment. The flooding comes as a result of steady rains the last couple of months, as it is the rainy season across southern Africa. This resulting in an inflow of water from heavy rains in Angola through the Zambezi via Lake Kariba into the basin, which is the Delta. Locals have been cautioned to be mindful, as the river could be dangerous for those fishing in the area who are there for leisure. A continued threat may result in an evacuation of locals around the Zambezi, Botswana, Namibian, and Zambian sides of the river, professionals report.
All right, the government announces availability of booster shots. Please tell us more.
Yes, Botswana are very, very excited for the arrival of booster shots, as Botswana will start offering booster shots of 5 different COVID-19 vaccines from Monday. Botswana Ministry of Health and Wellness has announced in a statement that those who have received their last dose at least 2 months prior and ideally within 6 months of their original shot automatically qualify for booster shots of Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson and Johnson, AstraZeneca, and Sinovac. According to the statement, this follows the approval of booster shots of all 5 different COVID-19 vaccines by the Southern African country medical regulator, BOMRA. Botswana booster doses are meant to increase immunity in case one is infected by COVID-19 or a variant must not suffer from symptoms that may lead to hospitalizations or death. By the end of December 2021, at least 1.0 million people she had been fully vaccinated, exceeding the targeted population.
All right.
It's
That's
about
actually quite rare.
50%
Very few countries are meeting their targets.
Yeah.
Now, in the last of your story, a Botswana netball coach is facing assault charges. Could you please get into that briefly?
Yes. In very disturbing news, Botswana Netball Association is facing a backlash after senior team coach Situlile Mlotwa is alleged to have slapped Buikanyo Selokgotse during the Africa Cup held in Namibia in November. The incident is said to have occurred in full view of members of the Bona executive committees, including President Malebo Raditladi. Bona spokesperson Mukereste said they are aware of the allegations. We are aware of the allegations as the National Executive Committee, and the issue is being handled. The disciplinary structures are in charge of the investigation. We are not taking the issue lightly, he said. Mukereste was not in a position to confirm if the coach slapped the player or not, but said the concern will be brought before the disciplinary committee to establish what transpired. He added that there is no time frame for the investigation to be concluded. A very tricky one, claiming that they were witnesses, but now the president is neither confirming or denying these allegations.
All right. Thank you very much, Masego, for bringing us the pertinent news from Botswana.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great and progressive week.
Thank you very much. Speaking of progressive, Pan-African payment system. That's what we'll be talking about in the first of our economic news stories after the break.
The My NA Property Show provides viewers with the best-in-class property content, from looking for the perfect house to transforming it to the perfect home, with focus on interior designing, transforming your garden into a tranquil haven, to going green and having the funds and security of financing and insurance. The My NA Property Show has it all. Tune in and make your house a home with our monthly My NA Property Show on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 on all the NMH Facebook platforms and our website TV channel 1up2, 1up2.com.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Now, as promised, we're going to get into your economic news stories. And the story that I highlighted earlier is our first story. Pan-African payment system launched. This is how it works. The long-awaited Pan-African payments and settlement system was launched in Accra, Ghana, in a virtual event under the theme Connecting Payments, Accelerating Africa's Trade. The new system allows a buyer in one African country to make a payment in his or her national currency and the seller in another country receives payment in their local currency. Its commercial launch came after a successful pilot in the West African Monetary Zone region. The WAMZ is a West African Economic and Integration Body with 6 countries: Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. In order to enable instant payments across African borders in local currency, a document available online indicates that the new system supports 3 core processes: instant payment, pre-funding, and net settlement. Now, due to the speed of the real-time payment process, it is noted the system needs to guarantee that funds are available to complete the originator's transaction before effecting the movement of debits and credits between participants' accounts. The Pan-African Payments and Settlement System needs to ensure prompt settlement within 24 hours.
Eskom take Koeberg Power Station unit offline. Eskom will take Unit 2 of the Koeberg Nuclear Power Station offline on Monday, the 17th of January, for regular refueling and maintenance outage that is scheduled for 5 months. This will be the 25th refueling outage on Unit 2 since commissioning and will also see the replacement of the unit's 3 steam generator. During this outage, the reactor pressure vessel head, which houses the nuclear fuel while the station is in operation, will also be replaced, Eskom said in a statement. It said that the Koeberg Unit 1 outage of a similar duration will follow later in the year, during which Unit 1 steam generator will also be replaced. Its reactor pressure vessel head was replaced several years ago. The Koeberg units at 920 MW each are the largest generating units on the African continent, the state company said. The Koeberg outages are planned at times of the year when the impact on the overall electricity supply is minimized as far as possible.
Now in Angola, average oil production dropped to 1.1 million barrels. Angolan oil production in 2021 stood at 374.8 million barrels at the end of November 2021. This is an average of 1.1 million barrels per day, with the expectation that 35 million barrels corresponding to December, bringing the total for 2021 to 409.8 million for the year. These figures, compiled by ANGOP, point to a year-on-year slowdown in production compared to 465.3 million barrels and an average of 1.2 million BPD in 2020. The data also indicates that Angola produced around 115,000 BPD less, which resulted in a daily loss of $6 million in export earnings. Angola is currently the 3rd largest producer of crude in Africa, after Nigeria and Libya.
Africa's cannabis market to hit $7.1 billion by 2023. Africa's medicinal cannabis market will be worth 7.1 billion by 2023. Morocco legalized the product last year, with the illegal cannabis industry exporting 13 billion worth of pot to Europe annually. Discussions about cannabis are as a cure of the coronavirus, though not backed by any science, have gained foot, with some promoting the plant to combat some effects of the virus. Interdose Pharma, a Canadian-based corporation, completed a record shipment of medicinal cannabis weighing 2.125 tons from South Africa to North Macedonia in December 2021. According to Forbition Partners, the research and consultation firm that deals with the legal cannabis industry, Africa's medicinal cannabis market will be worth 7.1 billion by 2023. Africa's hunger to exploit the cannabis market is accelerating because of the much-needed revenue and the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Discussions about cannabis as a cure for the coronavirus are still ongoing.
All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Next up, economic indicators. It was an exciting sporting weekend. Of course, Liverpool fans are much happier than would like them to be. But a lot was happening. And here to break it all down for us is Ari Hohad.
Yes, a very good morning. A busy sporting weekend we had all over the globe. Lots of sports happening and some controversy in there as well, but we'll get to that. And first, let's look at some football news, some soccer news. Big tournament happening at the moment is the African Cup of Nations happening in Cameroon. And news from the tournament is that holders Algeria, they were stunned by Equatorial Guinea. The score was 1-0. That means Algeria is on the brink of not reaching the last 16. Algeria now needs to win their last game, and that will be on Thursday against Ivory Coast. And other results also from the tournament: Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone, they drew 2-2, and Tunisia, they beat Mauritania by 4-0. And the teams already through to the last 16. In Group A, it is host Cameroon that is through, Morocco in Group C, and then also Nigeria in Group D. And also big interest for Southern African interest, that will be tomorrow Malawi that will play Senegal, and Zimbabwe versus Guinea, and Malawi can still go through to the last 16 if they beat Senegal. And today's games: Burkina Faso versus Ethiopia, and Cape Verde, they play Cameroon. Also some news from the English Premier League just briefly. Liverpool beat Brentford yesterday by 3-0. They're now second on the log, way behind Manchester City. Manchester City on the weekend, they beat Chelsea by 1-0. And another result from Saturday, Manchester United, they drew 2-2 against Aston Villa. Manchester City leading after 22 games. They've got 56 league points. Now on to some tennis news, and that was not dominating the news. The tennis news at the Australian Open, starting today actually, was dominated the whole week about Novak Djokovic and just his struggle and his fight to be able to play in the tournament and stay in the tournament. His visa application was cancelled. His visa was cancelled by the Australian government, and yesterday there was a court case that was heard by 3 judges, and they upheld the decision of the Minister of Immigration of Australia. That means that Novak Djokovic, unfortunately for him, had to fly home. The first seed and defending men's champion, he's not going to play in the Australian Open this year. That leaves Daniel Medvedev, the second seed, the top seed now at the moment. He will start his tournament tomorrow. And the Southern African interest in the tournament, also Lloyd Harris and Kevin Anderson, will be in action. And then in the women's seed, that is Australian Ashley Barty. She's the number 1 seed, and she will fly the flag for Australia in her Open. And she also starts her campaign with the first round game. That will be tomorrow. That is Ashley Barty of Australia. On to some netball news, and it is the South African netball team that's playing in a tough tournament in England. It's the Quad Series, they call it. They're playing against the top 3 seeds in the world, Australia, England, and also New Zealand. And the South African Proteas found it tough to compete in the first weekend. In the first game, South Africa lost to England by 71-47. And yesterday they played against Australia. That's the number 1 seed in the world. It was a little bit better for the South African Proteas, but they still lost by 60-40. And the other result from yesterday was England. They beat New Zealand in a tough game by 49-46. And tomorrow the tournament will continue. It will be England that will play against Australia, and South African Proteas, they will play against New Zealand. Let's continue with some cricket news. The Ashes cricket series that was completed yesterday, the 5th test and final test that was played in Hobart yesterday. And it was the Aussies that clinched the Ashes by 40 test wins to 0. The test yesterday, Australia won by 146 runs. It was England chasing 271 to win the 5th and final test. They were 68 without loss at one stage, but then lost the last 10 wickets, or the 10 wickets, for just 56 runs, bowled out for 124. So Australia won the Ashes test, the 5th test, and also the series by 4 tests to 0. And close at home in Southern African interest on Friday, it was the South African Proteas that had a brilliant win at Newlands. They beat India in the 3rd and deciding test by 7 wickets. And the two teams will now continue to play a one-day series, a 50-over one-day series. And on Wednesday, the first game will be played in Paarl. And let's close off with some motor racing news. Motor racing enthusiasts would have followed the difficult Dakar, the grueling Dakar rally that was concluded in Saudi Arabia over the weekend. And the winner in the motorcar section was Nasser Al Attiyah, and he is from Qatar. He is driving in his Toyota Gazoo motor racing, and he had a teammate in South African Ganiel de Villiers as well that did well as well. But the winner there, Nasser Al Attiyah, it's the 4th time he's won the Dakar, so a very experienced driver from Qatar, the 51-year-old veteran. And in the motorcycle section, it was the Britain's Sam Sunderland that won in his gas motorcycle. That was also Sunderland's 2nd win in the Dakar in the motorcycle section. So that's all the sporting news all over the globe. Enjoy the Australian Open that starts today, and all the best for all the soccer teams that you're supporting in the African Cup of Nations. We talk again on Friday. Have a great Monday and have a great week. Goodbye.
Every weekday from 7 a.m. Africa Good Morning streams live, bringing you all the news happening in the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not. Here are the highlights. Ethiopia at crossroads as drone attacks worsen Tigray crisis. Malians rally in support of the ruling junta, protest ECOWAS sanctions. Ethiopia wants WHO Chief Tedros probed for misconduct. Tunisians defy ban on social gatherings. Pan-African payment system launched. And in sport, we had AFCON over the weekend with Gambia and Mali sharing the spoils with a 1-1 match. Those have been the stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on the first edition this week of Africa Good Morning. Please remember that our show replays again on our website. It's called One Up 2 from 8:30 to 9:30. We also welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2censworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. That is at Africa Good Morning. Please remember that we can all beat COVID-19 together. Play your part.